Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and empower educators to be the change. I'm your host, Dr. Will, and today I am here with Jacqueline Rose. How are you doing, Jacqueline?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for being a guest on the show. I've known Jacqueline on social media for a couple of years now, and when I started thinking about, okay, what's next coming up on the show, and she came through my feed, so I said, all right, let me check through the bio. And I'm thinking, and I'm seeing Genius Hour. And I'm like, what the heck is Genius Hour? And the first thing that crosses my mind is like, is this like the Google 20% thing? And I get online and I started doing a little more research, and I said, okay, all right, we need to get Jacqueline on the show and talk to you about Genius Hour. Because one of the things about this show, I hope that I'm able to do is have the discussions that get teachers to really think and reflect upon their practice and how they can give students greater ownership of their learning. So for those who are watching, will you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello. My name is Jacqueline Rose. I'm jrose_edu on all platforms, and I am currently an instructional technology coach for EC through 8th grade for Fort Worth ISD, and that is in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas. It's a large urban district. I think we're sixth, maybe largest in Texas, and we like things big in Texas. So it's a really big size district, and I service anywhere from pre-K up to 8th grade. I work with primarily teachers, administrators, but I do get to work with some students as well. And I help them purposefully incorporate technology, work on more innovation, try to get them kind of adjust that mindset and how they approach education, and just help them make those future-ready learners.
Awesome, awesome. So what is Genius Hour? Is it a free-for-all, or can it be aligned to benchmarks or state standards?
Yes, Genius Hour, just a bit of a background. You were right about Google. It has several different origins, but the most prominent, I guess, urban myth is that it was born from Google's 20% time, which basically is the corporate office of Google gave their employees 20% of their time at work, their paid time, to work on something that they were passionate about or that they had an interest in. One of the rules for that, or guidelines, was it needed to either support Google in some way, or it needed to somehow tie to their position at Google. And some great things came from that. Gmail is actually someone's Genius Hour 20% time project. So it started there. But teachers, we like to take things, we like to make them our own, we like to steal things and implement them in our classroom for the betterment of our students. And so some teachers started taking that concept and using it at the classroom level, where they gave their students time, 20% time. The amount fluctuates, but essentially a time in class set aside for the students to chase after their passions and really explore them and become creators of something, of a product that tied to their passions. And I heard about it on Twitter. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I was on Twitter, and I believe it was Joy Kerr. And if you do not follow Joy Kerr, if you have any remote interest in Genius Hour or just anything educational, I suggest you follow her on Twitter. And I saw her posting something. I did some Googling. I watched some videos, and I just went down this internet black hole spiral of Genius Hour, where I could not get enough of the videos and the articles and the research behind it. So it was over the summer, because I'm a nerd and I like to search educational things while I'm on my summer vacation. I was teaching, coming out of the 3rd grade classroom, going into 5th grade. And I emailed my principal, Jenny Morris, who is amazing. And she's just awesome. She's on Twitter as well, so I would recommend connecting with her. It was definitely a, hey, Jenny, this is what I want to do. Here's some videos behind it. Here's my measly research. I want to try this in my classroom, which would entail a schedule shift and a curriculum shift. And it was not a little thing to ask. And I was very, very blessed and very fortunate to have an administrator and the vice principal as well, Kelsey, who's also amazing. And Ginny just said, you know what? I trust you. And when you have that kind of a climate where you are not layered with rules, you're kind of given freedom to fail and to create and to try again and to reflect and to apply. Just like in the classroom, it blossomed. Educators blossom, teachers blossom, students blossom in that kind of an environment. So she gave me the freedom, and fully knowing that it might blow up, but she said, I trust you, go for it. So I began doing it, and it just changed my classroom. It changed the way I viewed education. It was, aside from connecting on Twitter and Instagram, Genius Hour was the most transformative practice that I've adapted as an educator.
Wow. Wow. So in letting go and allowing students to be the drivers of their own learning, how can this be aligned to state standards?
That is a question that's asked often. So I'm from Texas. In Texas, of course, we like to do things differently. So as opposed to the Common Core, we have what are called TEKS, and it's basically the Texas Education, task. Oh gosh, my students would kill me too because I've forced them to memorize this. Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, there we go. Basically, it's Common Core, but just a little adaptation here and there. It's the standards that they need to know for every grade per content level. With Genius Hour and with content, your content's everywhere. This is something that teachers tell students growing up. You're going to use math in the real world, and you're going to need the science, and truthfully, they do. You've got figurative language in commercials and persuasive text scripts. You've got any type of STEM creation, any type of machine. You've got science, you've got math, you've got engineering, even looking at social patterns or why people behave the way they do. That's social studies. It truly is everywhere. And if you, as a teacher, take that time to pull those topics and show, hey, this is what this looks like in action. This is where you see this already in your everyday life, then students will start to see that in their own passions. So even if they're passionate about making a half-court shot, they'll need math with that. They'll need science with that. So showing that layering is a way that we were able to align our content with Genius Hour. Another thing that I would recommend is, and this is blasphemy, I know, in some schools, but set aside your scope and sequence. I know that we have X amount of things that we need to get done this 6 weeks, and then this 6 weeks, and it has to all get done. And you, heaven forbid, you learn about something that's the next 6 weeks when you're only in this one. Set that aside. Take the control off of that. Don't let a state mandated schedule dictate what your students are passionate about. So I would have more of a bank of, okay, guys, this is what we got to knock out this year. How can we tie this into what we're passionate about? And not only did that kind of alleviate the structure, but it also had students hungry for, where can I find this in my project? Where can I find this concept in what I'm passionate about? So they were more in charge of drawing the content in as opposed to me forcing it on them.
Cool. So you're learning about it, you're hyped, you are putting this thing to work in your classroom. What were some of the pitfalls you experienced when you tried to implement it?
Oh gosh, so many. One of the things that I tell teachers is, and especially I'm very passionate about student-led classrooms and student-led learning, and Genius Hour is a great illustration of that. One of the hardest things is the loss of control. Teachers, myself included, are control freaks. I'm a recovering control freak. We want the students to act a certain way in a certain situation in response to a certain lesson. And when they, deviate from that, it's the student's fault. It's the student's fault. They are having a unique response. So I would say losing that type of control, that where you need to control what they're thinking, what they're excited about, that has been a struggle. If you teach a math class and you've got 5 kids that are bored out of their minds, and then you teach a social studies class and 5 different students are bored out of their minds, It's not because they're bad students. It might be because they struggle with being a traditional learner with that content, because to them, it's just words. They don't have a passion for it. So keeping that in mind, really fueling your actions with empathy for the students and removing that desire to control everything that they're excited about. That has been the hardest, is the loss of control. And I tell them, when you first start this, it will be like herding cats. And that's okay. That's okay. That's going to happen sometimes. Another thing that has been a struggle is you've got the students that are your high achievers. They are your yes ma'am, no sirs. Everything's neatly done. Your type A's, very organized. How can I please you? And then you have a variety of other students that include anywhere from I literally cannot sit in my seat for more than 2 seconds to you cannot get me to speak in class, to I don't ever want to come to school. You know, you've got a variety of what often teachers view as bad students. And I have found that the type A students struggle the most with it because there is so much freedom, because they have to be so in control of their learning. So type A students struggle with it, which also means that type A teachers are going to struggle with it. If you have to have a certain response to a certain behavior, if you have to have that structure, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable for a bit, but that's good. That means you're growing, and that means you're moving forward, and your kids are too. So the lack of control, and then the fact that those type A students don't have the give me what you want me to do in black and white so I can check it off my list, those have been probably the biggest struggles with the beginning, the implementation.
Okay. So we had a little freeze on the screen. Hopefully that's not in the playback.
I know. Can you hear me okay now? Can you hear me okay? Oh no, I hope it's not freezing.
Okay. Did you hear that playback?
I heard everything fine.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Okay.
We had a little, and now I'm hearing some echo. So this might be the last time I use Google Hangouts.
I'm not hearing an echo. You sound great. I think there might be a little bit of a delay, but yeah, there's not an echo. Am I echoing?
No, you're good. You're good. I just heard a little something. So yeah, I may be doing Zoom from now on.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, why are you messing with me, Google? So I hear you were talking with teachers, and one of the things that I am working with teachers now, and I don't know what to say to them when they're like, look, I got to be on top of these kids. I can't turn my back from these kids. I can't, let them, go over there and do what they're going to do by themselves. I have to be front and center and directing everything here. And I know you mentioned in your response about, they have to get over that, but what is that conversation like with teachers when you're working with them and you bring it up and they're like, I don't know about this. This is really different. What is that conversation like with them?
Yes. That does happen often. I get that response. And that it's something that I kind of have to tread lightly with, because when that does happen, I have to, my first response is mentally, I'm thinking, what does that say about your classroom climate if you feel like you can't trust your students? So that I normally use as kind of a segue to what is your classroom and culture like? Or, how much say do your students have in what happens in your classroom? Because if you have the students essentially as, this is a horrible analogy, but also sadly a little bit accurate, if you have your students as prisoners and the teacher as, a prison ward, If you release those gates, they're gone. You're going to get mayhem. But if you kind of cultivate where the environment is different from I'm up here and the students are down here and near the two shall meet, transition from that into more of a student-led classroom, not just student-centered, truly a student-led classroom. They develop rules. They develop, they become their own organism, and you're a part of that. They become creators of procedures and even how they're going to express mastery of concept. If you give them that kind of a control and don't just do it, but really be transparent with your purposes and tell them, hey, this is what I'm trying. I trust you guys. I'm giving you this because I trust you and because I trust that this is something that you can handle. And when my last grade that I taught was 5th grade. So I know you'll probably have to adjust that a bit considering, if you are in K through 12 or whatever. But at the 5th grade level, I was able to have those discussions with them. And of course, I mean, they're 5th graders. They make fart jokes all the time. And well, I would make them too. So that doesn't really change much as far as maturity level goes. But I was able to have those conversations. And whenever those hiccups would happen, it was not I'm so disappointed in you and you're a bad kid and, whatever. It was more of let's talk about why this is going on. And one of the things that I would get as a response from teachers when I would see that, or they would see it happening in my classroom, they would say, well, I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to pull those kids aside. And I say, and that's fine. Just kind of think about, you can either invest your time now and truly build these relationships. I mean, I had relationships with my students where I trusted them, they trusted me. We were a unit. And by the end of the year, they were a well-oiled machine. And in fact, I did this thing called a day of silence where I just didn't talk all day. They knew it was coming and they ran everything. They ran procedures, they ran lunch, they ran recess, they called themselves where they needed to go. They ran the curriculum schedule. They truly ran everything. And I just sat and I did not say a single word. Because they knew there was that relationship there that they were excited to learn, but they also had the relationship with me where they knew that I was trusting them with this stuff and they didn't want to, I guess, take that for granted. And they saw the benefits of it. It wasn't because I was like, oh, here, take this worksheet and I'm trusting you to do this. That's not enjoyable. It was activities that they really desired and things that they really wanted to do. So if they were working in the hall, it's because they were making a really sweet Rube Goldberg machine and they need more room. And they could tell me that and I would let them. And if I looked out in the hall, they weren't texting or taking selfies. They were super pumped about their machine and they were just jazzed. And even times they would encourage walker-bys to come and look at what they were doing. And I mean, they were fired up about it. So once you reach that point, I find that the problems will go down. It does take time, though. It takes time. It takes an investment of your energy and the students' energy. But for me, the payoff was worth it.
Cool. So what do you say to those teachers and administrators who, quite honestly, and we just have way too many in education right now. But they're going to, their thoughts is good instruction looks a certain way. And this Genius Hour, they could, a principal could come in, an academic coach could come in to do some sort of, observation or just hey, let me see what's going on. And they walk in and they don't see what they're used to seeing. They don't see what, like in our district, we have like M-Star or something. Like this is what they're looking for and this is how they rate teachers. But they walk in and it looks nothing like this, right? It looks nothing like they have known all their life. It looks nothing like the consultants that they pay to come in and tell them this is what instruction looks like. It looks nothing like that. So what do you tell them to get them on board with this shift in what they're looking at?
Well, I would normally start with the way that we used to teach. We don't need to anymore because what the world and society needs is different. There's this amazing documentary called Most Likely to Succeed, and it's about High Tech High, I believe is what it's called, in California, where it's essentially all Genius Hour and PBL and very Socratic in their discussions. And it's like the dream school to teach at or to be a part of. But it talks in that documentary about when the structure of education was first established. It was by these 12 old guys forever ago that were basically, okay, well, this is what we need. We need to make kids that can do this. And it was very mechanical. It was, leading up to, we need to make cogs and pegs, and we need factory workers, and we need compliance, and we need order. That's what we need. And speed and accuracy. But now that's not the same. We do, yes, have some jobs that require that, but for the most part, it's those soft skills, problem solving, critical thinking, communication, innovation, collaboration, things like that. So now we have to kind of look at, what am I teaching and how is it going to help my students get ready for those jobs that haven't even been invented yet? How are they going to adapt to that? So I kind of talk with, what are your structures, how you have it structured now? What do you think the benefits are? Start with that, because it's not that we need to scrap everything. I mean, the teachers are doing what they think is best. No one goes up and leads their class thinking, I'm going to rob them of joy today. Hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed. But they are doing what they hope is best for their students. So if you can find common ground with that, knowing that I know what you want is what's best for your students. Now let me show you some research that shows that things are kind of shifting. And then always provide examples, especially teachers have, we're visual. We need to see examples. I need to copy exactly what you're doing, and I need to implement it that exact way. So I do like to give examples, articles, people to contact, people to follow on social media, videos of my students in actions, pros, tips, really a toolbox of things that's going to set them up for success. As far as when you've got those administrators coming in and looking at different things, always I would encourage you to talk to your administrators. Don't pull a Genius Hour and then have them show up and be like, oh, hey, BT dubs, this is what we're doing. Really try and be transparent with them too. Don't, as well with your parents. Let your parents know what you're doing. Let your students, your parents, even your team. I was the only one that did it my first year. I was the only one, but everyone on my team knew what I was doing. They knew at any time they were welcome to come join us. They were welcome to come see us in action. I was there to answer any questions, but, and this kind of ties with the principals or administration coming in, always give that power and that voice to your students. Let them be the selling point. I could get up and give a monologue about how amazing Genius Hour is, and that's all good and great, but in reality, those students, they need to see the change in the students. And I think that's what really helped me, is the change in my students, the change in my kids that, didn't want to come to school or were failing, had a lot of problems at home, and just that complete 360 that they did. No, I'm sorry, complete 180. That's math degrees. Okay. I'm an ELA person. Okay. But so I would encourage teachers to, when the students are doing these things, these activities that maybe don't look like the standard sit and get, say, you're welcome to talk to the principal. When they come in, tell them what you're doing. If this is something that we want to keep doing, be open and tell them, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and this is how I'm learning. And share with them, be open. Transparency, we have these facades that we feel like we need to keep as teachers, whether it's I'm up here and I'm the all keeper of knowledge, and students, I have to know everything. We have to stop that, because Google is the keeper of knowledge. YouTube is the keeper of knowledge. It's not us. So just changing that to where they're seeing you as a learner as well, and as a fallible human, because we are, and having them be transparent with parents and with teachers and sharing on social media, so that those walls can kind of come down and just conversations can happen.
Awesome. Look, I'm digging what you're saying. I'm really digging it, because school is broken. Let's be honest. even from the fact that you have kids, like Statesman require kids to take a certain level of math. And you're going like, why? Like you have kids who are not graduating from high school because, we require you to take this math class. And I'm looking like, you do know that when you go into college, your level of math is dictated by your degree program. So if you're going to you're going to be majoring in dance or in English, you're going to take a regular basic math class, right? You're not going to be in there taking imaginary math, or you're not going to be taking that, that math that, Stephen Hawking does, that you won't be doing it.
That.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, I got a BA myself. So, but high schools, you have states, because they want to quote unquote be more rigorous. They're missing out on the fact that every kid has their zone of genius, and that requiring them to take certain classes or things to be set up in such a rigid way actually robs them of recognizing and building upon that zone of genius.
Yes, it definitely does. And along with those soft skills and along with that zone of genius, like you had said, that they are not getting to grow, they also have things like grit and longevity of tasks that's hard to teach. And it's not something that we can sit them and put them in front of a worksheet and just force them to complete it, because realistically, it's not going to help. And so something like Genius Hour and a Genius Hour implementation, you delay that gratification between I want and I get. They have a starting point, and then they truly have to build through before they can reach a level of like a product or completion, or, hey, I've done this. Yes, they'll have so many amazing moments and learning throughout that does tend to intrinsically motivate them, which is that's my jams. I would rather that than a sticker chart. But it definitely puts the distance between this is what I want and this is what I'm going to get.
Excellent. So as we move forward in this, and teachers are like, okay, we're going to let kids do this thing, okay, and they're going to roll with you, Jacqueline. Okay, they're going to take that leap.
Yes.
What is their role? How does a teacher begin to sort of plan or set the framework for Genius Hour?
What I would start with, and this is something that is different for different educators, and I know that not everyone, but there are several ways that people tweak it, and I encourage you to really throw yourself into it and let your students make it something that's for you and for your, appropriate for them. Starting off, I would probably suggest, because, and we're actually going through this process with one of my campuses right now. I would start with a wonder wall, and I would have them, which we just duct taped some construction paper to the wall and wrote wonder wall at the top. And we just had questions that the students were curious about, like how are websites made, or how do horses get trained the way they are, or what happens to pets when they were going through the shelter system. Questions that these students were really passionate about. So I would really suggest that they start with conversations about things the students have interest in. And for some, it's going to be difficult. And actually not the younger kids. The younger kids are, we haven't squelched the joy of learning out of them just yet. So those younger grades, you ask them, what do you love? What are you passionate about? And they will just list off a slew of things. And it might be anything from painting to dancing to, I really like school buses, things, but they find joy in stuff, and that's able to be captured. When you get to the older grades, and even as teachers, there are tons of great resources online that are, guideline questions or live binders. Again, Joy Kerr, I'm like Genius Hour crush on her for years. but live binders, here's a great live binder. One of the things that I used was, what are some things that you do in your free time? You've got those students that don't really, your type A students normally, that struggle with finding something that they love or that they're passionate about because they don't really understand how passion and learning can be the same. So we talk about, what are things that you do? You know, if you've had all your chores done, it's free time, what would you spend that doing? And start those conversations. And some might say, well, I would read, or I would go play with my animals, and then pinpoint it from that. What do you love about that? What is it that you love about even if it's watching TV? What is it that you love about TV? What is it that you love about your animals? And start finding what their passions are, kind of in that narrowed down way, until they're able to pinpoint exactly what it is that they love, and then find ways that they can act upon that. Especially with teachers starting out, it's going to be a lot of just conversation. You're not going to get these products right out the bat. It's slow, and it's learning, because that's realistically what things are. We don't master hobbies overnight normally. So it's going to be a lot of just good conversations with your students and helping them find those things.
Cool. Now, since this podcast mission is to drive the conversations of what it means to go digital, how can technology enhance the learning experiences for students doing Genius Hour?
Oh gosh, just 500%. The biggest one is connections outside the classroom, whether that is Googling things, whether it's getting on Google Hangout or Skype and connecting with other people, finding numbers online of experts that they can contact, Twitter, sending out polls, getting ideas of things. That ability to make the world smaller is priceless when it comes to that. With Genius Hour, it's always a good idea and recommended to have some sort of support system, or I guess expert kind of on the outside. And that actually could be just another teacher in your classroom. I'm sorry, in your campus. It could be someone on Twitter. It could be really anyone. Then the cool thing about kids, again, even the younger ones, is that they will reach out to people because they don't quite understand they don't have the negativity that a lot of adults do. Instead of, hey, I really want to do a Genius Hour project over sports, they will reach out to people with hopeful hearts. And in fact, one of mine was doing one on sports injuries and sports medicine and tears, really just gross graphic knee stuff. I think they just like looking at the injury pictures of torn knee cartilage. It's not a pretty sight, but they had a question and they couldn't find an answer that they were needing on Google, and they were wanting more of like a personalized. So they were like, well, let's just call up the Red Sox. And I was like, but I never skewed them with my skepticism. I tried to, let's do that. And they did. And they Skyped with them. The trainer for the Red Sox was like, sure, I'll talk to you. And so they were able to have these discussions that there's no way I could have given them. And even the internet, yeah, they gave them facts, but they were able to look at things and really hear what they were needing. So the ability to connect with people and make that world smaller, that's the number one thing. Second, and this is more for teachers than it is for students, but the documentation process. I would have my students either blog about it or they could write. I know that some, just like, adults, we've got different types of learners. Some students enjoy being online and they like connecting and they like typing and they love that. And then others really just crave that pencil to paper, and I want to respect that. So I gave them those options. And this is something how I was able to tie in grades, because that is a huge question as well, is can I grade this? So I would do where, let's say we had a week and then we would have our Genius Hour. At the end of that Genius Hour, they would set a goal and for the following Genius Hour. So then when that following Genius Hour came, they would look at their goal and they would say, did I meet this goal? Yes or no. If I did, How? What helped me? What skills did I use that were able to help me? What resources? They would always give me a written summary recap of what they did if they met their goal. If they didn't meet their goal, they would write, I didn't meet my goal. This is why, and this is how I plan on changing and adjusting so that next week I do meet my goal. And then here is my next week's goal. And it could be something like, by next week, I want to have the website platform narrowed down, and I want to know what kind of content I'm going to put on my website. And it could be big goals, little goals. And the teacher's role in that is 100% facilitator. I would always encourage them to not tell them you need to adjust your goals. It would be more so of, like, for example, I had one Genius Hour project that they wanted to build a football stadium for the town, which is great and super ambitious. But again, they're on 5th grade allowance. And realistically, we had to just look at, what's your goal in a week? So I let them make their big lofty goal of, well, we're just going to get some contractors to donate materials. I'm like, okay, cool. So the next week, when that goal was not entirely met, I did not say it's because you dreamed too big. It was, how can we adjust this goal so that it's a goal you can meet next time? Why do you think this goal wasn't met? So it's not, I'm pushing cynicism or negativity. It's more of just a realistic look at, what are my abilities? What are my resources? How can I apply that to what I'm trying to do? Because even that thought process is something that adults struggle with. I still struggle with that. So teaching that, showing that, modeling it will help them tremendously.
Awesome. This is such a good show. I mean, I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And I love the concrete examples and information because it's the one thing that I want educators to do. That's why I say inform, entertain, and empower, because I want people to be entertained. I want them to say, okay, this is worth my time. But I also want them to leave here not only inspired, but to say, I got a nugget of something that either I can use tomorrow, or now I know where to go get the other stuff I need to get there. So this has been really awesome. So before we go, where can teachers find additional resources to learn more about Genius Hour?
Oh my. There is just a plethora of really awesome connections that you can make out there. Joy Kerr, I know I've said her name 11 times because I'm low-key obsessed with her, but she's awesome. She's awesome. She's great. So I will sing her praises till the day I die. Andy McNair, who's my homegirl. She's from Texas. She just wrote a book also it's like the 6 Ps of Genius Hour, or 5 Ps, and I'm bad for not knowing that, but it's a step by, this is what you do, this is how you do it. So for those teachers that kind of struggle with that creativity, open concept, that would be a great starting point. So Andy McNair, Joy Kerr, AJ Giuliani and he sends out weekly newsletters, so you can get tips just weekly from him. He is an open resource. He's always willing to connect. Don Wettrick is great as well. He wrote a great book that has helped a lot of teachers, and he teaches an innovation class now. So he's a great resource. And just Twitter in general, there are Genius Hour chats. There is a Genius Hour Facebook group. If you reach out and say, hey, I'm wanting to get started with this, help, you will be flooded with people who are just itching to get you on board on the Genius Hour bandwagon. So I would just encourage stepping out and saying, I'm interested, and just being overwhelmed by the response.
Excellent. Thank you again, Jacqueline, for being a guest on the show.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. I love it.
Awesome. You are a champ too. People, you know how I do it over here. This is going up on my blog. It's going to be on YouTube. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to put this on LinkedIn. You need to get on LinkedIn, people. There's some awesome stuff over there. And of course, I'm going to tweet it out on Twitter. And for those people who, maybe the video is not your thing. I don't know why. I love it. But maybe the video is not your thing. And you got to commute, right? This podcast will be on SoundCloud and iTunes. So as always, people, thank you for watching the show. Invest in you, edu. Peace.